Russian President Vladimir Putin has reacted to Sweden and Finland's invitation to join NATO. Speaking after the security alliance's leaders called Russia a significant and direct threat, Putin said he'd be forced to react if NATO's presence was felt in either of the countries.
We don't have problems with Finland and Sweden, such as we unfortunately have with Ukraine. But they should clearly understand that they didn't face any threats before this. If NATO troops and infrastructure are deployed, we will be compelled to respond in kind.
We can now go across to France 24's international affairs editor Armen Georgian, covering the NATO summit underway in Madrid. Armen, good morning. Vladimir Putin has promised to respond. What's NATO's plan if Moscow does?
Well, the Lithuanian foreign minister with whom I spoke to last night, he, in a sense, preemptively reacted to those comments by President Putin that you just played. He told me that, according to him, the Kremlin functions through creating fear and that NATO should not tremble every time Putin says something, but instead be ready. And the impression that he gave me was that Lithuania was going to feel a lot more secure working with the Nordic states once they actually join the alliance, and that the Baltics and the Nordics would essentially kind of create a common area and all feel more secure together. That was the gist of what he told me. NATO at the moment doesn't have a specific plan in place for if Russia does something in Sweden and Finland, for the simple reason that Sweden and Finland are not members of NATO for now. They've simply been invited to join the alliance, but they are not yet in formal accession talks. So it's a bit early to talk about exactly what NATO will do, particularly in Finland, which of course does have a border with Russia, and clearly the presence of any rotational deployments by NATO in Finland in the future that would elicit a Russian response, no question about it, particularly if such deployment were to happen on the border with Russia. And one would certainly expect some kind of rotational deployments to happen one day in Finland and Sweden, just as they've been reinforced for existing NATO members. That's been announced at this summit. But it's still too early to know exactly what NATO will do in those countries in terms of deployments, and so it's very hard to guess exactly what the contours of this dynamic are going to be between Finland and Sweden and Russia in the future.
Indeed, we have to see how long that ratification process takes. Armen, Vladimir Zelensky spoke to NATO leaders yesterday, and he reiterated once again his appeal for more money, more weapons from the security alliance. Today, we're going to hear the US president speak, amongst other leaders, including the French president Emmanuel Macron. What are they likely to offer Kiev?
Well, one key figure at this summit has been the Dutch Prime Minister, who has been lobbying his colleagues to send more heavy weapons to Ukraine, essentially echoing President Zelensky's call. And both the Netherlands and Germany have announced during this NATO summit in Madrid that more howitzers will be sent to Ukraine. In terms of French commitments, well, we know from earlier this week the French confirmed that armored vehicles would be sent to Ukraine, as well as more Caesar cannons. But I think that was a confirmation of an earlier commitment, actually. It really, you have to look at this in terms of individual NATO members. What are they going to announce? Because it's not up to the alliance as a whole to announce military aid to Ukraine. What the alliance as a whole has done is to announce a technical assistance package to Ukraine, including non-lethal aid, but it's going to be up to individual members to say what they will do. As far as the French are concerned, we had a briefing yesterday, actually, with a senior French diplomatic advisor, who said, yes, of course, France will continue to support Ukraine militarily, but the important thing at this summit is to reinforce NATO's eastern flank, and France is very active in doing that in terms of its presence in Romania through NATO channels and structures. And of course, the broader question of an autonomous European defense, that is something that the French are pushing for at this summit, which they see as something complementary to NATO rather than something that might somehow go against or be in conflict with NATO.
Armen, thank you very much for that update. Armen Georgian reporting there from the NATO summit underway in Madrid. Thank you.